when a thin mist unfurled in the quiet valley of Street. Morris at the end of September, and the damp chill of morning clung with obstinate patience, as if to remind people of the inevitability of time. The Ashworth estate, standing above a small river, presented a picture of propriety and restrained elegance. The white portico, the columns with graceful capitals, the ponds reflecting the gray sky, all were arranged with that sense of taste which only gentlemen of old lineage could afford, without ostentation, with patience, and with pride in family honor. Mr. Charles Ashworth was a man of middle years, inclined toward reason and precision, which he praised as virtues far above passion. His face, considered by many to be pleasant and expressive, bore the traces of the quiet burdens of a man who manages an estate and raises a family. The keenness of the eyes, a furrow between the brows, and a faint weariness at the corners of the mouth. He was a man of upright morals. His house was open to the poor and to wanderers, and his daughter's childish mischiefs he forgave with the gentle indulgence befitting a father and master of the house. Mrs. Martha Ashworth, his wife, was not so timid in her feelings. She possessed a lively mind, and, as was said in the district, a sharp turn of phrase. Both Charles and Martha had been raised in that spirit of moderate religiosity and social vigilance proper to their class, respect for order, composure in society, and a measured distrust of emotion when family interests were at stake. One late evening, when all the servants had retired to their cottages, a stranger appeared at the threshold of the estate. He was simply yet neatly dressed, his cloak and hat both of somber hue, and his face struck several of the household as oddly familiar, as though seen not in life but in their thoughts. "A strange wind has brought him," said Martha, opening the door herself and gazing at the visitor. He gave his name as Mr. Harrow, an unremarkable name, plain and without pretension, and asked for shelter. Mr. Ashworth, by habit of heart, could not refuse. To offer a traveler refuge, what could be more Christian, especially on such a damp, raw night? The intoxicating aroma of tea mingled with the soft crackle of the hearth as the stranger told how he had come from London, having learned of a matter concerning his personal inheritance, a debt that threatened the loss of land and home. His voice was even, yet beneath it lay a tension, the kind of quiet unease that makes a man at once sharper and more cautious. His words caught Charles's attention. "You have been in London?" he asked politely. Mr. Harrow bowed, and in his eyes flickered that firm, unspoken confidence reserved for the few. He spoke of a will, a dishonest lawyer, and a letter that might have proved his claim, but which, alas, lay somewhere lost among piles of papers in the city. Then came a name that made Charles's heart nearly stop. "And if Mr. Ashworth himself had not been involved, my fate would have been sealed." The guest had uttered the name, Ashworth. That same night, the conversation brought forth a family revelation. Mrs. Ashworth had once been a distant relative, lost to the family through circumstances known to few, and the guest claimed he was the son of the last branch entitled to a share of the estate. "I come not to demand," he said, "but to ask for justice." He sought only refuge, time, and help in restoring what was right. Mr. Ashworth, with habitual caution, promised only what he could honorably fulfill: temporary shelter, consultation with a solicitor, and protection while evidence was gathered. Mrs. Ashworth, on the other hand, wished to help immediately. She liked the thought that fate might weave justice into their lives. By morning the household was astir with whispers. Servants murmured in the kitchen, and the children, sent to the garden, whispered of the secret heir. Rumors, those swift-winged messengers, spread quickly across the parish, that the Ashworth estate had given lodging to a stranger with claims to the family line. Mr. Harrow removed his cloak and settled in. Letters that followed him from London hinted at a conflict with a man known locally as a barrister, a lawyer, and, truth be told, a servant of a bygone age, people said. Soon that barrister himself arrived in Street Morris, with brisk determination and an armful of papers. His name was Creedon, a man of long career and even longer ambition. He came to assert that no such will existed and that Mr. Harrow had no lawful claim. Thus began what authorities might call a discussion, but what the townsfolk called a prolonged quarrel. Creedon trusted his documents. Harrow, his lineage. Ashworth sat between them, clinging to conscience, seeking balance between hospitality and law. There was, however, a third person silent but vital. Miss Evelina Ashworth, Charles's daughter, young and eager to understand not only dances and embroidery, but the meaning of things. Her diary revealed more thought than her polite smiles ever could. Her eyes held the curiosity rare in her circle. She spent long hours listening to the adults' debates. Then, in the quiet of night, wrote reflections on justice and on how easily human fates are broken when paper proves stronger than truth. A week later, the unthinkable occurred. On the very night when discussion in the drawing room reached its peak, an unknown intruder entered the attic of the Ashworth house. There, among dusty trunks and dim portraits, lay a bound envelope, copies of certain documents, sealed with a ring and a signature faintly resembling those of faces long gone. The discoverer was not Mr. Harrow, it was Evelina. She possessed that quiet cleverness seldom granted to women of her rank, the ability to ask, to listen, to see signs where others saw only old frames. Breathless, she carried the packet to her father, hiding it under her cloak. The papers, speaking vaguely of the right of the born heir and the concession of estate shares, bore a seal recognizable to anyone who had dealt with London's old notaries. Charles examined them and felt something stir within. Perhaps, after all, there was truth in Harrow's claim. But truth has a habit of being inconvenient. It forces its way into the light, exposing what many would rather keep hidden. Under questioning, Creedon proved not only educated, but cunning. He knew every legal loophole, could twist meanings, and swayed judgment toward parchment. He whispered to guests that the Ashworth papers were nothing beside the official deeds kept in the city archives. Then Evelina proposed a plan at first reckless, then necessary, to travel to London and find the true seal and the original record. She begged her father to let her go. "Let me follow the trail," she said. "I know how to speak to people and not waste time. Let me prove the truth is ours." Charles hesitated. Public opinion, danger, the vastness of the city all terrified him. But Martha, recognizing her daughter's fervor, found the words. "If we wish for truth," she said, "we must accept risk. To turn away is to surrender a man's fate to those who love trickery more than conscience." Thus Evelina set out with Mr. Harrow and a loyal servant. London, which she saw not through ballroom windows but through narrow streets and bustling markets, seemed immense and faintly hostile. Yet it offered wonders: libraries, coffee houses where men debated politics and gossip, places where truth and falsehood mingled in equal measure. Their first visit to the Chancery showed that paper is a stubborn thing. Misplaced notes, faded signatures, obstinate clerks, all demanded patience. Yet Evelina's sincerity softened hearts. At last, a dusty clerk found an old folder. Within it, the very seal they sought. Evelina's joy was half triumph, half relief. "We were right," she whispered to Mr. Harrow. But not all was settled. Upon their return, Creedon declared the papers forged and produced yet another voice, a judge, whom he had won with smiles and subtle gifts. In court, eloquence and appearances stood on his side. The dispute dragged on, and the weary breath of London seemed to blow fatigue and temptation toward compromise. The Ashworths faced a choice: submit to the machinery of law, or keep faith with conscience. Mr. Harrow, watching his hopes fade, spoke quietly of dividing the estate, his voice carrying that desperate pride that refuses silence even in humiliation. At last came the decisive day. As the judge arrived, Creedon rushed to present his new papers. Yet that same morning, a new figure appeared at the estate, a retired archivist, once in the Ashworth service, who remembered the affairs of old. He carried an oak chest containing diaries, records, and lists of rightful heirs. Among them lay a note in the hand of Charles's great-grandfather, acknowledging certain claims and urging that, if dispute arose, judgment be made by conscience rather than by purchased law. That document, though old, carried the spark of truth, which, joined with the seal, dispelled all doubt. Creedon, weary and cornered, tried once more to wriggle free, but his craft lost power. The judge, seeing the whole picture, felt that a judge may be deceived, but not the conscience of those who watch, and so the ruling went to justice. Mr. Harrow was acknowledged the rightful heir, with due respect to the Ashworth's claim, so that honor remained untarnished.
The joy that followed was quiet, not triumph, but the calm relief of righteousness restored. Harmony returned to the Ashworth home, tea times, walks beneath the trees, and evenings of gentle reading. Mrs. Martha was proud of her daughter, now called not only sweet, but useful. Mr. Harrow, in modest contentment, settled nearby, a frequent and welcome guest. Yet the peace won by parchment served as a reminder. The world of men is fragile. One night, as Evelina sat by her window watching the river, she thought how little one needs for happiness, and how much for a clear conscience. Her diary read, "Truth is not always loud. It is often like a warm light in glass, hard to see from afar, but once you draw near, everything becomes clear." And just as the world seemed at rest, inevitability knocked once more. A relative in a neighboring county died, and questions of inheritance rose again. The Ashworths, who had endured one trial, now understood that another awaited. Yet they knew this time, truth is not only parchment and seal, but living hearts, those who dare to speak, to listen, to risk, and to preserve honor. Thus ended the episode that might serve as a dream for many souls. To some, a lesson in how easily the trivial is bought and how dearly the priceless costs. To others, a reminder that mercy and resolve can alter fate. And to Evelina herself, it brought understanding, that each generation must guard the truth, for only truth allows one to build homes where tea may be poured and life may be lived in peace. The close of this tale leaves one sense above all, that life is a fabric of many threads, where a single strand tugged in London may loosen a knot in St. Maurice. And if one listens to the wind whispering through the trees, one might hear, "Old houses and family names are not burdens of tradition, but duties of honor, toward the future and toward truth."
Good night. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel.